Slay Nation, it's your host Heather back with another episode of the So She Slays podcast, and today I have Liz Faircloth in here. I am so excited to talk to you because I feel like our topic is definitely on some people's minds. Now, Liz, you are the co-founder of the InvestHER community. There's so much that involves. It's almost like a So She Slays, except you do investing for real estate. So you have your own community and all that kind of stuff. And I know, most of our audience is kind of in the millennial area, and we're one of those factors where we've literally just watched properties, houses, all of that, especially in the States, just skyrocket. And there's a lot of us who've just come to terms with the fact that we're never going to be homeowners. We're just going to rent. We'll save our pennies. We'll either take trips and invest in other things or whatnot, but that home owning is totally out of reach for the majority of us. So let's just kind of dive in here. Before we do that, because I always like to have our audience know a little bit about you, Liz, before we dive in, go ahead and give us a quick rundown, and then let's hop into this topic.
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur for probably about 17 years. My husband and I got the itch after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or my boyfriend at the time. I was going to school for social work and decided to begin investing in real estate. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was like, this is interesting. I can, create passive. We didn't know any of those things existed. Passive income, all the terms. I felt like I was in my 20s, a little like behind times. And, we got a loan from my father, who's a school teacher. My parents didn't have a lot of money. And we said, we want to buy a property and do this. And we took classes, we took courses at the time. About a year in, we bought a duplex right outside of Philadelphia. And as soon as we bought it, we had our tenant move out. So we learned a lot about landlording. We learned a lot about, renovating. And then we ended up moving to New Jersey and building our multifamily business from there. So, really mostly focused on, large multifamily at this point, because we've been at it a long time. And at the same time as we grew that, I met my now partner, Andressa, and we became incredibly passionate about women in the space of investing. And the statistics out there are just crazy, where women are actually outperform men as investors, yet they don't do it enough. They're not really making the investing decisions in households across the country. So we made it our mission, and we believe that women have the birthright become financially free. So we created a community, a podcast, and a bunch of different InvestHER Con, and really the space to create a community, not just the knowledge, but the community of women getting what they need so they can take control of their money and their investing decisions. So that's my passion. I love real estate, but my bigger passion is serving women. And we're taking on the world.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And I think that's why we align so well, because it's the same thing over here with us. It's, just kind of empowering and having women make that decision for themselves. And I mean, I did read a statistics that said there's like a large amount of single women who now own their own place, whether it's a house or a condo or apartment or something like that. They're on their own, doing the dang thing. So, I mean, it is possible, but to get back to my original question.
Sure. Let's go back to the original one. Yeah.
Most of us feel like that just home buying, condo buying, whatever it is. And I'm coming from the perspective of being a millennial in California, which is one of the most expensive states. We're just kind of coming to the terms that we're never going to actually own a house or a property or anything like that. So can we just start there? Is that really the truth?
Yeah. I would say it's, everyone has their own truth, right? Actually, I was listening to a coach the other day, and she goes, there's your truth, and then the other person's truth, and then there's another possibility. I'm like, that's a good perspective, right? But so I think, in a lot of ways, we are listening, not to the wrong people, but yes, interest rates are higher. There are certain situations in our economy that's real, right? Yeah. And I'd say is that we need to be talking and listening to the right counsel from the investing space. Buying a home for your house to live in is one thing. Buying an investment property is a different thing. So we really need to delineate it just from off the bat. We make a little more emotional decisions when we're buying a home to live there. It's our home, right? It's not a house. But from an investing decision, it's a different ball game. It's got to make that it's got to, the income has to exceed its expenses, or that's not going to make financial sense.
Yeah.
And so there's a strategy there. But yeah, I mean, from a home ownership perspective, here's what I will say. I'll say that, there's certain markets like California. So many of our women in our community have, live in California, but they don't invest in California. I know other people that do have properties in California, but they're doing like midterm rentals, they're doing short-term rentals. They're really creating more of a strategy where it's more high touch, it's more concierge, but their income is also higher than, say, maybe that one long-term tenant. So I think the biggest thing is that people need to take a step back and go, there's an asset, and then there's a strategy, and there's lots of strategies for that one single family home. And that's where you're thinking at it from an investor perspective. Where can I create the most value, make the most money with the time that I have? And will this make sense? And yes, those deals are happening all around us in every state. California's tough, right? I'm from New Jersey. We don't invest in New Jersey anymore because taxes are psycho high, if that's even a term. It doesn't make sense. So we don't really I don't buy property in New Jersey anymore from an investing perspective. And we actually bought our single family home that we live in now, me and my husband and my family, in Pennsylvania because the taxes were less. So yes, all those things are real. But I think from an investing perspective, I think there are opportunities still out there. It's more about the strategy. It's not so much the property. It's the strategy which you employ to the property that you can get creative on strategy and actually financing.
And that's kind of where I want to play with this a little bit, because I know a lot of us just feel like, okay, you have to have a down payment, and that down payment, I'm going off of California numbers, is like, I don't know, could be like 50 grand, right out the gate. Could be like something where a lot of us could be anywhere from, like, I would say I've heard, and depending obviously on the property, like 20 to 50 grand down payment. Everybody's like, okay, well, the likelihood of me gathering all that much money right now it's like slim to none. And then turning around and investing it, and everybody's also like, that's a big chunk of money. I don't want to be house poor. I don't want to, like, am I making the right decision? Which I know money is emotional. So that's one of the things right there.
Well, let's talk about that, because here's the deal. If you have to be talking to the right lenders first off, because you don't if you live, there are programs out there. If you live in the property, I know people who do live in flips. They actually live there while they're flipping the property, which I don't know if I could do with my 2 kids, but I know people who do it. And the financing they get is crazy low, very low. I don't, whether it's, I know one woman was telling me she, it was like 3% down payment because she was living there. Again, loans are fluid. You have to know what the going rate is. But I know that there are very creative ways to get loans if you live in the property. Same with a duplex. So for example, you live in one unit and you rent out the other. There are some very lower interest, I should say, than 20%. Not just lower interest, but less down payment, that you can actually be able to finance that property. And you have to live there a certain amount of time. And I don't know all the specifics. Yeah. What I would say, though, is that often people are talking to the wrong types of banks. They're calling Wells Fargo. No offense to Wells Fargo. No offense to Bank of America. I don't mean to be calling them out particularly, but these are big banks. You want to talk to investment-friendly banks. Those tend to be small community banks in your local community. They have usually 8 to 12 branches. And they're really interested in they're really interested in lending for investment properties. A duplex is considered an investment property, still considered residential. Anything less than 4 is residential. Anything above 4 usually is commercial. Even if it's residential, it's just, you have to talk to the right people. So, but there are some really creative ways to really finance, as well as down payment, from a down payment perspective, when you're living there, and in other ways, veterans. There's so many different types of groups of people that actually have so many different benefits of less of a down payment. I don't think people know these options. They just hear 20%, or even worse, 25% now, or even 30%, which is crazy. So you have to have the right information. It's like if someone plays Monopoly and they're not given any money,
Mm-hmm.
they're just told they have to figure out how to buy property without any money, you're not going to win at Monopoly. You're going to
You're
lose.
good.
It's just it's the same thing right now. There are so many different creative ways to finance and to get into investments, but people just aren't playing the game. They're not surrounding themselves with the right people
Mhm.
and the right information.
Okay,
So that
so
would be my first
I was like,
suggestion.
how do you find that then? Like, how are you making sure? I mean, we talked about small banks, community banks, what that looks like, but what do we mean by you're not surrounding yourself with the right people? Who are the right people?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because, just because you're on social media doesn't mean you're the right people.
Fact.
You know, I mean, it is a big fact, right? Because I had a woman once who's looking to invest in a property with another person. She goes, "Oh, she's really big on social media." Oh, she actually said it. Excuse me, he was really big on. I'm like, that doesn't mean that.
It doesn't
Doesn't
mean
what does that
anything.
really mean? They just have a loud mouth,
It means they're
But anyway,
trending.
exactly, it means they're trending. But you know, here's what I would say: you want to talk to people that are actually have experience in what you're looking to do. For example, I go to my uncle and I say, I'm thinking about buying and I am. My husband and I are very invested in real estate. One of our goals this year is to buy a business that has nothing to do with real estate, just to do some diversification. Not big fans of the stock market. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we're really more interested in like a business. Great. So who am I going to go to talk about that? I'm not going to talk to people who have never bought a business, because what are they going to tell me? It's risky. It's not a good time to buy a business. That's the worst idea. I mean, you
Mhm.
could go down the long list.
Mhm.
Now, if somebody who's very savvy at buying businesses, they're going to give me insight into which businesses make sense right now.
Yeah.
How do I mitigate my risk? How do I make the conservative choice, like something recession proof, right? So you got to be talking to the right people. That's the right people, in my opinion. People that are actually in the trenches. That's why I'm so committed, and I know you are, of people that are not like investing 20 years ago. Like, I'm an active investor. Like, we are literally buying properties. We're shifting our strategy right now, even from multifamily to a different asset class. So and it's not just me, but other people. And I think that's really important. People who are lifting each other up, doing what you want to do, and have like really creative ways to do it versus like, I got to
Yeah.
put this amount of money down. I can't afford it. I should just go back to this. That might be the case, but it may not be. And
Mhm.
that's where the expansion comes in. So if that, yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
definitely. So when it comes to different strategies and all that kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
what are we talking about? Different strategies.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think about it, and let's take it even a step back before you get into what market, what property, what strategy, because ultimately those are the three pieces, right? Knowing what market you want to invest in, what type of property you want to invest in, and then what strategy to use on that property. It really
Yeah.
all comes down to those three things, very simply. Before you even go there, I'd even say, Heather, that a lot of people watch HDTV, or they get online,
Mhm.
they get on
Fair.
Zillow, and they're like, "Ooh, a property! Ooh, an Airbnb! I want to own an Airbnb!" And I know I'm being funny, but it's true, right? And so let's take a step back and go. Ultimately, any investment decision should be moving you towards your financial goals. It's a means to an end, and I don't think enough people do the work to say, what is the why here for me, and what am I really looking to accomplish? Am I looking to replace my income? Am I looking to build my retirement? Am I looking to put this property in my kid's name because I want this property to be free and clear, and then I pull money out for their college education? There's so many reasons and so many different age demographics people are investing. The advantage that millennials have, even more than me, because I'm an old person, you can't see my grades. No, I'm a Generation X, but I still have some. I'm right on the cusp. I'm
No,
not that old.
you're doing
No,
good. You're
but
doing good.
the advantage though that millennials have, and so many, and I'm so grateful that I started when I was younger in my 20s, is that you have time on your side.
Mm.
And time on your side, you have what the beautiful part about real estate, right? And especially if you're buying right, is that you're buying something that's a tangible asset that in many places, if you're buying in the right markets, is going up in value, and you're paying your mortgage down. It's a
Mhm.
powerful asset, and I am biased, but it is a powerful asset. And that's why if you have time on your side, you know it's forgiving, especially if you're buying a rental property. Um, so I don't know if that answers your
Yeah, yeah,
question, but
yeah. I think for us, especially like I would say millennial generation, it all comes back down to, you know, figuring out the I think it's the being afraid part of it, right? Cuz we all just look at these giant numbers and we're like there is no way in hell I can afford, like especially in
Yeah.
California. I mean, it's just a regular, smegular house and you're talking it's like 1.5 to 2 million.
Yeah. And that's where I'd say, so let's go back to the 3 prongs. That's where I was going. You got the market, you got the property, you have the strategy. I think for me, and I've always invested in areas that were like more, you know, up and coming areas.
Mhm.
California is a very expensive market. So if you buy a duplex for, I know, I'm sure $1 million is probably not, what is a duplex probably go
There
for?
could well, it depends on how crappy you wanna do, like, I mean, there could be some flipping
Yeah,
involved. I would say you could go anywhere from, like, the lowest, which requires so much work, probably 800,000 to up to 3 million,
yeah.
4 million, something like that.
And so that to me is like nerve-wracking. I've never done a deal, and now I'm gonna buy this dilapidated duplex in California for $800,000 by myself. Like, that just doesn't seem like the best idea, to be honest with you. I wouldn't probably do that. So you have to kind of like mitigate your risk, right? And I think any savvy person with their money and their finances and their investing is always thinking, how do I really mitigate my risk? How do I set myself up that I'm really thinking about everything ahead of time versus like not thinking about everything ahead of time. It's not even overwhelming. I'm setting myself for success so I can mitigate any sort of big issue.
Mhm.
And the bigger dollars that you're going into, the more, more uncertainty there is. So my suggestion too is that why can't people in buy a property outside of the state? They can live somewhere, but they don't necessarily have to invest there.
Mhm.
So a lot of the folks in our community that are in California, they invest in other areas, even Arizona or Texas or the Midwest. Midwest has a number of. I was talking to a woman I just interviewed. She converted a single family to a duplex.
Oh.
She bought the property for $150,000. I think it's in Iowa, and she put a lot of money into it, but it was worth 400,000. She bought it for 150, put 150 in. It was worth 400,000, and the rents were in a positive cash flow, and she was able to convert it in this market. She did this right.
Wow.
The town was very supportive. All the boxes got checked. So my point is that the market doesn't necessarily have to be just where you live, but you need to have trusted people around you. I think I would I'm a big fan. Obviously, Zillow's fun, but I'm a big fan. If you're really serious about investing, find some, a community. Obviously, you could tap our meetups. We have meetups everywhere, free meetups everywhere in the country. And these meetup leaders actually know the areas that are worth investing, not like the war zones, not like we can't afford it. It's
I
like
mean,
somewhere in the
I can't
middle.
even tell you how many times my friends and I would scroll through Zillow and it's like, oh, there's bars on the window. Okay, maybe not here.
Yeah. If you're not feeling safe, and this is coming from someone, I got our start in Trenton, New Jersey, which is the capital of New Jersey. Very, up and coming, still figuring itself out. And, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy city to invest in. But I would say if you want to get serious, like find those realtors who actually know investing in that area. That's a really, easy way and smart way that they know more because you don't want to rely on your own knowledge. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing, Heather, that I see so many women, I don't care what generation they are, what age they are, they try to do it themselves. Try to figure it out themselves. And what ends up happening is they stop.
Mm,
They stop because they run out of their own confidence. And that's what, like, I in my soul, that's why we have our community and that's what I believe in, is that you cannot make all decisions by yourself. Lean into people who've done it and been there, who can like have your back versus like I had to figure it all myself. It's scary. I wouldn't do anything if that was the case,
yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Facts. I mean, facts. I would not at all. And like we said, like money, investing, all of this stuff. I mean, like thankfully, like we said in the beginning, I think women own far more, like single women own far more real estate than single men do at this moment in time. And that could be from, just reaching out to the dang community around you and trying to figure out how to go about doing this stuff. Because I think it is possible. And especially, like you said, we have time on our side. So my next question for you then is, you know, for someone who is in their like later 20s, 30s, is there like a dollar amount somebody should have before they're like, okay, maybe I should start looking into investment? Or, how would you go about even getting this, ball rolling apart from just having this idea?
So here's a really simple way, and I think I wish I did this when I was in my 20s. I didn't, and we were able to get certain lines of credit, and we also made a bunch of money mistakes
Mm,
that cost us time, it cost us money, and it cost us um, a lack of propelling and growing our really scaling our business. The first 8 years of our kind of business and processes, like we were like this, and we were just
mm,
kind of going up and down and until we really propelled. So here's what I would say. Most people don't want to hear this, but it's about managing what you already have.
hmm,
Meaning, so if I was able to really like look at my household, I don't care if you're renting, I don't care if you're owning, it doesn't matter really. You still have a household, quote unquote, to manage. There is money coming in and there's money coming out. And if you want to be and you aspire to buy that investment property as a step, if you don't know what's coming into your household and you don't know what's leaving and you're not able to manage that, you're not going to be able to manage a property.
mm,
Or you can manage a property and it's not going to work out well because it's going to be, you're literally compounding an issue. For me and my husband, one of the things we did early on was we took like this money mindset course.
mm,
Even just what your relationship is to money. I mean, any investing, money is the root.
yeah.
Money is the piece that. So I'm even if you have no money to invest, I would start getting really clear on your relationship to money because that's something you can do for free with some googling
Yeah.
and reading a couple books. And so what I wish we did, I wish we were really able to be more fiduciary with our household, meaning like, okay, we're really clear on what's coming in, what's going out, start putting a percent aside for investments, putting a percent aside for paying ourselves. Um, we were just interviewing Kim Kiyosaki on our podcast,
Okay.
and she said, it's the habits. The wealthy live by different habits than other people. And it really does come down to habits. So a habit that I would suggest is to start to get a handle on your own. And I know it's scary. It's
Yeah.
scary for a lot of people. Like they don't want to deal with it. They don't even want to look in the damn bank account, to be
There's so
honest.
much anxiety around it. I
Anxiety around it. And it doesn't have to be that way. I don't know where along the way um is such an we have such an attachment, to money. What does it mean to lose money? What does it mean to make money? There's so much around that. And I think that is it could be some of the work that's done before we get to like phase two. To answer so money management is number one. Number two is like, where do you want to be financially? Like that's important
mm.
to understand.
Okay, and I
Meaning,
was
are you
gonna say,
looking
what do you mean by that? Because we hear that so much, but what exactly does that mean?
I made it very granular of saying, okay, if I'm going to get into investing, there's money to be made in like a one-time amount. Like I flip a house, right? I buy it for this, I fix it up, I flip it, right? That's not necessarily investing long-term, but yet that's money that can be made in this space, right?
Mhm.
Or I buy a rental property. I buy it for X. I have a tenant in there that's paying down my mortgage and I'm cash flowing a couple $100 a month. Now, a couple $100 a month's not going to retire me
Yeah.
out of my
Yeah.
job. Um, More of them could over time. Could the money that's I just made in the flip help me buy that investment property? Yeah. So that's what I mean of like, what am I looking to do right now? I'm looking to make some extra cash. Okay. Does that matter how much? It all depends on what the person, how they yield that. But it all starts with small steps, I would say, Heather. And it's very small. You don't have to go buy a huge building. You literally can manage your money. I would highly recommend that. Get clear on your relationship with money. I'm just stressing it because I didn't do this and it really stifled our growth. And quite honestly the harder work. It's the free work, but it's the harder work. Thirdly, when you get to that point where you have money to invest, or even if you don't have money to invest, but you're ready for that, the next step is to really assess what do I enjoy? What do I most attracted to from an investing perspective? Meaning, the whole Airbnb thing is interesting because of the high touch, the experience. So many people are converting buildings to these small boutique hotels where people are communing, they're connecting. That's a big thing in our space, right? It's not just I go to the Hampton Inn and I leave. It's a much more of a high experiential piece, especially after COVID, and after the pandemic. Um, or am I somebody who's like, I like construction, or like I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want to make some extra money,
Yeah.
right? There's a real spectrum. And what I mean by that, though, is to know what you're interested in will help dictate what you get involved in. So, say you have someone who's interested in the Airbnb space. Well, that's something that, okay, what's the entry to that? Okay. How do I even embark on that? What's the lowest hanging fruit to get involved in that?
Mhm.
Some people that want to get into real estate could get into a REIT. And that's almost like the stock market meets real estate. So you can get in with $1,000 or $5,000 and start to just be involved investing, but not like I got to go buy a property to do that.
Yeah.
So I would there's there's also websites that people are like, you know what? I've always been interested in the stock market. It's always been interesting to me. Not my thing, but other people get interested in that. So you have to just start small. And there are ways to start small with small amounts of money. Real estate tends to be a higher entry, right? A higher barrier to
Yes.
entry because it's property, right? It's not just $1,000.
Yeah.
However, it depends on the market, and it also depends on how active or passive you're going to be. There's some big projects that are looking for almost like crowdsourcing, where people can put in $5,000 or $1,000 to a much bigger project. If I'm starting out, I want a lower barrier to entry. I want to learn from other people what I would want to do and not
Yeah.
do. So when I'm ready with my cash, I'm going to be much more confident
Wow.
versus
I didn't even know a
taking
program
30.
like that existed.
Yeah, there's actually a female-led one. Let me see if I can find it. We've interviewed her on our podcast, which I really
Because here's what I
always.
always tell people too, like in anything, it is so smart to come in with an opportunity to just learn from someone, like maybe your
Yes,
risk and this is anything, like this is kind of like my motto in a lot of things, but it's like where your risk isn't so high as if you were just going to
correct.
jump off a bridge into the deep end, right? It's like, oh, I've been dabbling in such and such for x amount of years, I kind of understand it, and to know that something like that might exist for real estate and for investment properties, that's interesting. I've never heard of that.
The other part to think about too is that there's an active side and then there's a passive side. Meaning, I go to a financial planner and I have money to invest, and they just take that money and put it into a bunch of mutual funds. And I'm not saying it in a flippant way,
Yeah.
but
I
in
mean, look,
essence, they're managing my
facts,
money.
facts. So many of us have that.
Facts, right? So that's that. Is that active?
No.
I don't know about that. That's more passive. There are other people like, you know what? I have a couple thousand and I want to learn how I can buy and sell. There are people who dabble in that, right? With amount of money.
Mhm.
That's more active. Real estate's the same way. I want to go buy a rental property. I want to go do that. That's an active side of the business. Nothing right or wrong about it. I also could say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. is doing this project. They're buying a 200 unit apartment complex, and it's called a
Yeah.
syndication. It's a legal thing. They file with the SEC and they look for investors. Sometimes they're accredited, sometimes they're not accredited. So you don't have to be accredited either. Meaning those are kind of projects that are passive. And typically that could be what, 10,000 to 25,000 or more, depending on people's amount of money they have to invest. So you always want to consider there's a lot of ways to get to the end goal, active or passive. And if you want to be active, there are smaller, lower barriers to entry. And so when I think about the risks that we took and the biggest mistakes that we made, I was just like, we were just risk takers, me and my husband. And we're like, what's the worst that could happen? Well,
We just
sometimes that
lose
happens.
money.
We just lose money. And honestly, this is like lines of credit against my parents' house, and that's a big
That's a
deal.
big
Like we made those whole. I know. That's a whole
That's
other
a whole
another
other-
interview. But we didn't lose the money technically, but we invested the money in a longer term asset. And with lines of credit, you really are using it and putting it back. using it and putting it back. That's the beauty of a line of credit, right? Again, things that we, could have done differently or better. But I wish we did those kind of lower barriers to
Yeah.
entry earlier on.
Okay.
It
So,
just makes you feel more
oh my
secure.
gosh, right? I know. I feel like we kind of covered quite a bit in our podcast. So I always like to leave Slay Nation, our audience, with some action items or tips or just anything that they could start implementing themselves,
Yeah.
right? So if you were to be in today's world, you are in your later 20s, early 30s, you're messing around with the fact of like, okay, I don't know if I have the money, I may have the money. What are like the first steps that you would take to really start exploring your different types of investment options?
Yeah. Number one, I would do, you don't have to even pay for this, I don't think, because I use it for many years. Mint.com or some sort of, uh, um, I think it's just a way to really assess your income and expenses,
Mhm.
and it connects to your credit card. And again, you could find a lot of free resources. I'm pretty sure mint.com is free, but that is the first thing I would do. I would get a
Like
handle on
what
my
is Mint?
finances.
Mint is like a financial planner. Is that what it like? What? Okay.
No, no, it's a way to, connect your different accounts to assess your income and expenses for your household, for
Oh,
your
okay.
home.
So it's a catch-all. It's so that you can kind of see what's
Yes,
happening. Got it. Okay, cool. I was
correct.
like, what the heck is Mint?
That
I don't know.
I don't know where the mint comes from. I think but anyway, I'm pretty sure it's a free resource. I use it for years. Um, or find something that literally can give you a snapshot on what's leaving and what's coming to you. You, your partner, your family, whatever. I think that's the first step. I mean, um, like I said earlier, we're looking at potentially buying a business. And I said to my husband, we have a handle on our personal finances, but I am not making any decisions. That's quarter two. Quarter one is about like really like streamlining everything we're doing in our personal household because I want to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
What's the just in case money? What's this? What's that? We have this business. We have that business. So I'm doing what I'm saying. Number two, would start to surround yourself with I would start to just learn about, real estate investing in general. Obviously, there's a lot of good resources. You could tap our podcast or all the different podcasts. We're part of Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets is a wonderful resource as well. Um, and start to hear people, listen to people and say, you know what? That's interesting. That's interesting. Single family home. Oh, they're renting things by the room. That's interesting. Like you start to just listen to different people who are doing different types of investing, whether it's real estate or other things. Just real estate, we're going to use that as an example. And then you start to say, how do I learn more about that?
Mhm.
So you almost want to get general to get specific,
Yeah.
and being part of a community, going to conferences, going to meetups. And again, I don't mean to be so self-serving, but tap our meetup, tap our community. We have literally a free Facebook community for you to ask questions.
Yeah.
And these women are going to answer your questions. Like these are pretty seasoned women. That's number two is just make sure you're getting educated from the right people. Get a little bit from, oh, I want to learn about real estate. Start listening to a podcast about real estate investing. Something intrigues you, something gives you energy versus taking energy away, then start to do even more research about that one thing, whether it's a multifamily, whether it's buying properties creatively, whatever the
Mhm.
whatever the topic that intrigues you, start to get more information on that. And then thirdly, then you got to get involved in give and get from a community that you can start bouncing. All right, I want to buy a short-term rental in Iowa, and I'm just a little confused about this. Now we can help you versus I want to invest in real estate. Where should I start? Like,
That's a little hard.
that's not, it's a little hard to help you.
Yeah.
But if you do a little bit of the homework and say, out of all these 10 things, this one, renting by the room,
Mhm.
single family is interesting to me. That's interesting because I think a lot of people would like that. It's they're getting an experience, they're connecting. How do I manage that? I got to deal with all their questions. Then you get more information, and then you're able to surround yourself with a community that knows that strategy well and can kind of keep you out of harm's way, if you will. And that's why we have our community, at least from a real
Yeah.
estate perspective,
Yeah.
and or another community, whatever works for you. But it's about knowledge and community. Don't learn it by yourself. So the steps include knowledge, but if you're not actually bouncing off of people that have been there, done that, you're going to get overwhelmed by the knowledge. You're going to get stopped, to be honest. You're going to have analysis paralysis.
Yeah. And that's so easily done in any sort of investment, anything. That's very easily done. Okay. Well, where can people find you, Liz? Where can they follow you? Where do we go to learn more?
Sure. We have the real estate InvestHER, it's HER.com, is our website. And why I'm directing you there is that we have so many different things there. Number one, we have free webinars. We do 2 free webinars, no strings attached. It's right there on the website about different topics, investing topics. We also have all of our meetups. We have 50 plus meetups, and they're in Canada as well, that you could just tap. And these meetup leaders are investing in those areas. So these women know, and it's all women led, women focused. You can get that as well there. And then the last thing I'd say, we're active on Instagram. It's at the Real Estate InvestHER, and also the Facebook community that I mentioned is free. We have over 15,000 women who are literally in the same boat, figuring it out, growing, trying to make that first decision, and they're leaning into each other. Just the last thing I'd say, Heather, too, is that's why we put our InvestHER Con together. We do a once a year conference. We have it coming up in Austin, Texas, June 2nd to 4th. And I just want to mention that too. We'll have 500 women there. We have Kim Kiyosaki coming, and it's going to be a pretty powerful conference. 30 women on the stage, experts talking. It's all women's speakers, women going. It's pretty powerful.
Oh my gosh, what a room to be in. Jeez. Liz, thank you so much. I know, right? I was like, wow, that's a lot of information in one room. A lot of powerful women. Thank you so much for joining us, Liz. I really appreciate it. I feel like we covered a lot of the topics that are on top of mind when it comes to generations coming up, when it comes to investing and all that kind of stuff, and including myself. So thanks so much for listening, Slay Nation. Until next time, we'll catch you later.
Thank you, Heather.